It says we're live, but I don't see us live yet. Maybe it's just taking a second.
Fake live.
Fake live. Maybe. There it is. Okay. Oh, I wore my Hearthstone creator
Oh,
program
nice, nice.
Such a
Sweet
cool
shirt.
shirt. It is. It was such a cool package that we got. I was like, there's actually a creator program logo. Like, it's official. So cool. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I think the notes are good. You got your turn. All right, we good to go.
Good to go.
Okay. Welcome to episode 34 of the TCCG Roundtable. We're your hosts, dragonrider and RonMexico. How's it going?
Hey, it's going great. How are you?
Doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. It's been a week. Been a couple of last weeks. It's felt like
Yeah, it's felt like a long week. Last we chatted, you were getting ready for a crazy weekend casting at the Masters Tour. That went down. A whole lot of excitement, and here we are. It's Friday again.
I know. I don't know how. Like, I feel like it should only be Wednesday, but I'm very glad that it's Friday because yeah, at the same time it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could take another couple of days at this rate.
Yeah.
Uh yeah. Well, I guess let's talk about what we've been doing or how this week has gone, what we have going on. Do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So, this week was a little weird for me. My I was doing my regular streaming thing through the week and had to take a day off. My partner broke her toe. I mean, it was a hairline fracture, but we had to go get that checked out and have a little time, figuring out what to do. She's got herself some crutches and an orthopedic boot, which is probably a bit overkill, but it's better safe than sorry, I guess. And now it's recuperation time, and then it's back to streaming some Hearthstone on the ladder and doing a little bit of climbing. Hunter still seems reasonably well positioned after nerfs, but just just a strange week, not your typical one. How about you?
Uh yeah, this week has been a lot of just relaxing mostly. I have not felt great for some of the week. But kind of just trying to like recuperate a little bit, rest after last weekend, which yeah, we'll definitely talk about that a little bit. But last weekend was the Hearthstone Masters tour that I did cast. So it was very much like just kind of in a couple of like really intense days with getting ready and then actually casting. And I mean, it was probably 10 hours each day of, watching, actually casting. And then the following day on Monday, which I was going to rest, I was like, okay, cool. Like Mondays are usually kind of more of like my chill day, get like a couple things done, but I usually take, Mondays to kind of do whatever. And I was like, nah, I'm going to start the day with like running errands. And then I like played a little bit of a tournament. And then I found a game store that had Lorcana cards that was several hours away from me drive wise. So I took a road trip and
As you do.
yeah,
Gotta
and
get those cards.
that's right. So yeah, essentially instead of actually resting and recuperating, I spent the day traveling and instead of resting my voice and stuff after casting all weekend, spent that in the car singing and all sorts of stuff, right? So, then,
I mean, how could you be expected to go on a road trip and not sing, though?
right, exactly.
It's
Yeah,
unacceptable.
exactly. So yeah, So Monday was not much of the relax, chill, recuperate day that I expected, but I did end up getting some Disney Lorcana cards, so I was very, very happy about that. I was very excited that I found somewhere that finally had them. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Um, but yeah, I guess I just want to talk about the Masters tour for a minute and kind of like my perspective and a little bit about the casting. Um, it was nerve-wracking, I guess, in a way. Like, I have casted before, even for like official Hearthstone tournaments, but this time, I don't know. I probably every time really like I just feel, I always feel like I have something to prove, right? Like I gotta do really well. Like I gotta get it right. I gotta I gotta prove that I'm good at this and that I know what I'm doing. Um, so I did a lot of pretty intense like prep, put a lot of work into prepping for this tournament. Um, I did talk quite a bit about it on this week's episode of the Doctor 3 podcast. So if you are interested in having like kind of an even deeper dive into how I prepped, definitely check that out. Should be out by the time that everybody is hopefully hearing this. Um, but I obviously I play a lot of Hearthstone already, right? I'm already like legend. I'm kind of at that level. I already watch a lot of Hearthstone, but in prep for this, it was like, okay, like play a bunch, watch a bunch, look at a bunch of stats, you know, look at a bunch of discussions, take a bunch of notes. So basically, I spent like a solid week and a half before the tournament just doing all sorts of notes. I looked up, I mean, at one point, like I was taking notes on who qualified, like what region they were from, doing all sorts of like, uh, writing notes on how they qualified or how they were going to qualify from that Masters Tour to the World Championship. I had like the rule book pulled up. I was writing notes like from that. I did a bunch of notes on like individual decks, right? Like, okay, what are the key cards in the deck? What's key information? There was a couple of like OTK kind of, I will say heavy math decks with mage and shaman. Like I made damage charts like for myself, right?
There you
So that
go.
like, you know, okay, for mage, let's say, Sif is a new card from the new set that as you play more different spell schools, cards from different spell schools, it adds damage, the spell damage that she has. So okay, what are the most common? Like 5 + 5 spell damage, +6 spell damage, +7 spell damage, +8 spell damage. And then I made a little chart with like the 3 or 4 most common like direct damage spells, and then what the math was. So that I could not like, I'm not the best at math. Okay, I'm just gonna say like, sometimes I don't add that fast. All right, but I didn't want to spend the time doing that while I was casting either, because sometimes those players play very quickly. It's you and another caster. You're trying to have a conversation. You're trying to talk about, you know, what they have in hand, what they still have in deck, what they're playing, what they're thinking about. And you don't really have time to actually sit there and try to calculate the math. And if you do, sometimes it feels like you're kind of missing out on talking about other things that are happening, right? When you're spending that time just doing the math. So I was like, I'm going to try to just set myself up and not have to worry about doing the math. I'll just have this little chart so that it's like, oh, okay. And then during the games, I was taking notes, right? Like I created little matchup charts for what decks they brought, like what, all sorts of stuff. And then especially for Mage, if anybody watches Hearthstone, right, for Mage, there was 7 different spell schools. When it gets to the point of a game where players have played 5 or 6 of those, if you were just writing like tally marks or writing like 1, 2, 3, 4, by the time it gets later, you don't know which ones they have or have not played. And I don't have that good of a memory. So I actually I wrote down the 7 different things like arcane, fire, frost, fell. And then like as they played it, I just like put a little check mark. So like, okay, I could know which one, while they were. Yeah. So and originally I was trying to write arcane fire, and
Ooh.
that just took too much time, right? Yeah. And especially if you're looking down, if you're writing something like that, you're gonna miss something. So yeah, I just got to the point where I was like, I just wrote out the list of the different spell schools and then just like, okay, check mark, check mark. They played that, and then at a glance, you could easily see like, okay, I see 4 check marks. They've played 4 different spell schools, so Sif is going to be +5. So I tried to set myself up like ahead of time and during. And then when I was off screen, I was like writing, I was already like getting my notes ready for the match that I knew I was going to be casting, as best I could. If we had that information on like who I was going to be casting next, once it got to like the top 8 bracket, there were some points where it was kind of, obviously it was, well, I'm going to cast one of these 2 people depending on who wins. They're going to be facing against whoever's already made it through the bracket. So it was very exciting. And I will say there was a point where I did the bad thing. And I looked at Twitch chat. You never look at Twitch chat. I was so bad. I was like, And then, that kind of self-doubt started to set in, and like, maybe I'm not doing as well with this as I thought I was. Like, oh no, And then I leaned on y'all in AFG. I was like, all right, I just gotta post in there and be like, I did the bad thing. I looked at chat. Look, help me out. And so, a couple people kind of threw comments in there, and they were like, yeah, don't worry about what they're saying. Like, a lot of those people don't really even actually like watch Hearthstone a lot, or
at minimum, I think there was 10,000 people watching.
Yeah,
peak was probably like something like 35 on average. It was like 18 plus. There's a lot of people in there saying a lot of things they should not be saying. So you just, the tournament experience for like esports, live esports, when it comes to like the official broadcast and then the chat of the official broadcast, I feel like it's a universal truism. Don't even participate in the chat. There's a little thing where you can hide the chat. I've done that in every tournament I've watched for I can't even remember how long.
Yeah,
it's just the move.
Yeah. And it's still like, I guess I also have a lot of experience with things like Supergirl Gamer Pro, right? Like when I'm casting that or something, they also have, I would say, much better mods and like moderation of the chat. It's also much smaller of a scale, right? So as you mentioned, 10 to 30,000 people versus, like a 1/10 of that. So it can be a little bit easier to moderate chats that aren't going as fast.
I'd say the community as a whole is probably a lot more I don't know, normal person, not like insane. To not to put too fine a point on it, and saying better mods, maybe, but that feels like a little bit like uncharitable to whoever is doing mod work for an official, Hearthstone tournament. It's just like it's a whole different animal. It's overwhelming to try to keep up with, 10,000 plus people who are just spamming things all the time compared to like 100 person or even close to 1,000 person like group, where it's like, most of the time people are not stepping over the line, and when they are, there's much less of them, so you can just get them out of there pretty quick.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't mean any like shade or anything towards the mods that were in, the chat for the Masters tour. That's not a job that like,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I should have chosen my words a little bit more carefully there. Yeah. Like they were doing a good job. I think it's just a matter of also the scale, right? If, as you said, if there's a chat of a tournament that has 100 people and they have 3 mods, and if there's also only maybe 3 mods for a chat that has 10,000 people, like I don't know how many mods
ratios
there were, but
those are some rough ratios.
Yeah, like you can't, even if you have the absolute like best mods that are just catching, as much as they can, and they're just like on it, and they're still not going to catch everything, you know. And as you said, like, you know, some people probably towed the line, right? If somebody is just being like, oh, where did Blizzard find these casters? Like, are you going to time out or remove every single comment like that? That's not realistic. Even I think in probably like a smaller chat, right? Like, you got to keep like things going. So yeah,
I'm pretty sure
just...
someone has said that line in every single official Hearthstone broadcast ever.
Yeah, for the last, you know, 9 years. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, it was more of just a like, I started to let it get to me. But then I kind of turned it around, and, you know, some of the comments didn't really have any like weight behind it, right? Just kind of the very vague, oh, these casters. Okay, well, like, all right, so what? You know, but I did feel like every once in a while I maybe saw a comment that at least bore maybe a little bit more weight, or something you could take as constructive criticism. You know, if people are like, hey, I wish they would talk more about the strategy of this, at least you can kind of take that and be like, okay, I can work with that. Just saying, where did they find these casters? I can't do anything with that, right? Like, so, you know, some of the comments I did see, and I was like, okay. So I actually shifted my mindset, and this was day 2. So I casted the first game, and then, you know, when we were done, because there was a delay, so then I went, and that's when I saw the chat, and I was like, oh, this, you know, obviously that's a mistake, not doing that again. But then it was like, okay, how can I take this and just try to get better throughout the day, even, right? How can I try to improve right now? And just, you know, maybe shut some of these people up. Or if somebody tunes in later, they're like, oh, wow, like, listen to all this. So then I decided, instead of being upset about the people who weren't giving any kind of feedback and who were obviously just saying stuff because they could, I decided, you know what, I'm going to take some of that. And as I cast every game for the rest of the broadcast today, I'm just going to try to get better with every single game. I'm going to take an aspect of that game, you know, especially maybe if it's a matchup that we hadn't really seen on broadcast. Okay, I'm going to like really try to break this down as much as I can. Or if it's a game, like a matchup or a deck that we've seen a lot on broadcast, what other points can I make that maybe haven't got brought up? Or what can I say differently without it just sounding like we're saying the same thing over and over and over about the same decks, right? Because to a certain point, there can be that like repetitiveness of a broadcast. So I was like, I don't want to.
Oh no, he's gonna do the thing again.
Yeah, like, oh, okay, we're seeing Mage again for the 30th time. You know, like after a point, you're like, okay, well, we're kind of saying the same stuff. So then I just tried to take it as like, how can we talk about something a little differently, or what things can I put in? You know, how much earlier can I start calculating for lethals and that kind of stuff. So, you know, that was really when I really started doing like a lot more notes during the game and stuff as well. So I just kind of tried to take it as a, okay, how can I improve now with each and every game, and just try to do the absolute best that I can during these games. So I think it went well overall. It was, you know, it was very exciting. There was a little bit of nerves, you know, and obviously when I saw like how many people at one point were watching the broadcast, I was like, oh, that's a lot of people. You know, but at the same time, I feel like this is kind of one of those big moments where you're like, I want to capitalize on this as much as I can, right? You want to try to do the best you can for future opportunities potentially, or, you know, even just being in the moment, right? Like if I had let that negativity get to me, I was going to just start to do worse and worse. And then it would just be like, wow, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Or like if I let that self-doubt get to me, it was just going to not be good, right? And that will come across. So I was like, well, I can't let that get to me. I got to figure out a way to like stop this thinking in its tracks right now so that I don't do that. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it was overall, I think it was good. And then by the end of the day, you know, I felt really good about the product and what I ended up doing. So.
Absolutely. And then you had to take a nice long break and relax and recenter, and instead took a road trip to get some cards.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, okay. So here's the thing with that is that I live in a kind of smaller population area, and there's also a lot of land, right? Like it's wide open where I live. Okay, we don't have a lot of card shops. We have two in this whole city, and one of them doesn't even do card games. Like what? Yeah. And for months and months, like I've been asking and trying to like even look around at like, neighboring cities, which are still, 2 hours away for like the closest ones. Yeah, that's, yeah. So I've been asking for months, like, okay, are you going to have Disney Lorcana cards? Are you going to, most of the shops were like, we don't even know what that is. No. Okay. Well,
Nice.
here we are. I think now some of those
great.
shops
Yeah.
are probably kicking themselves like we should have looked into this. Which, yeah, we'll talk a little bit about
Lore,
that
what now?
as well. Like, yeah. What is that? Oh, Disney. That sounds like it could be popular. Yeah. So
Wait, Disney
yeah.
made a game?
Yeah.
Who runs this
So
card shop anyway?
you know, as I'm casting, I'm like on breaks and I'm looking in Discords and on social, and then I see people like posting their Lorcana product and posting their like exciting
like, "Why not
legendary
me?"
polls, and I was like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, we're gonna finish this casting. I'm excited to be here. I love what I'm doing, but also like I love other card games, and I'm ready to like just dig in and do more of this. So it was a very like also I would say emotionally like high just weekend, right? Just like going from the prep and like doing this whole casting of a major event, and then like getting Lorcana product and like this just released and all this. So it's like you're just kind of riding that high, right? Riding that wave of like, oh my gosh, there's so many cool things that are going on right now. And uh yeah. So that was probably also part of why then my body was like, you need to relax now. And like you were running on adrenaline and coffee all weekend. Like, yeah, no, we're we're gonna rest for a couple of days.
Possibly could be connected. Reasonable hypothesis.
So yeah, it was good overall. I hope that people did enjoy the broadcast, and again, thank you to the team, and I'm very grateful that I got the opportunity. I hope it's not another 2 years before I get more, but I'm glad to have the opportunities that I do get, regardless of if I get more in the future. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's I guess in a nutshell how this last weekend
It
went.
was a busy week.
Yeah, it was.
Busy weekend, busy week, yeah.
And it's not very often that we get to talk about something like that, so definitely exciting. Just a reminder, we did talk about this last week. We do have TCCG Roundtable participating in the SolForge Fusion Digitize charity event that is being run by our good friend Casey Kidd. So that will be kind of kicking off and going on in a couple weeks from now still. But essentially what it is it is a charity event where there are multiple teams and we will have to play against each other. There is a card in SolForge Fusion called Digitize. We are all going to do kind of an auction, basically to raise money for this charity, to get a half deck that has a card that has a half deck containing Digitize in it, and then we will all have to play. Once we draw Digitize at some point in the game, we have to play it regardless of if it's beneficial for us or not. Digitize adds attack to something on the board, to a creature on the board. So if we don't have a creature on the board, we might have to give attack to our opponent's creature, but we have to play it. Like that's the whole kind of basis of this, is that once you get Digitized, you got to play it. But it's all going to be for charity. So definitely as this gets a little bit closer, we'll continue talking about it. But we can, hope that some of you check it out and give support. And if you want to help donate to the charity, you can either just donate as well, or you can put in what are bounties, they are called, right? So you can like place a bounty on players within the event. So it's going to be fun. That is going to be kind of starting really more like mid-September. So as I said, we'll have more information on that. So yeah, that's I think what we have going on and what we've been doing this week. What do you have for our term of the week this week, Ron?
So term of the week, we are going to go with Death Rattle. Death Rattle, specifically a keyword used in Hearthstone, but you should find in multiple other card games as well. That essentially just means when a minion or creature or whatever token item you have on the board is destroyed. It doesn't even have to be like minion based. It could be a weapon. It could be a number of other things. When this thing gets destroyed, it will have an effect that triggers. And that is something you can build your entire deck around in certain ways. You can use different cards that connect with I'm just going to use the term Death Rattle in this case, but it could be used as different ways in different card games. You can use it to basically artificially trigger the Death Rattle before the item actually gets destroyed or the creature gets destroyed, to stack up more of those effects. And things can kind of snowball from there, but it's just like a cool, interesting effect that you have. So it, a lot of people refer to Death Rattle or boards that you can make with multiple minions if the Death Rattle ability does something, for instance, to say maybe summon another thing, as like a sticky board. And that can be really helpful in a lot of aggressive strategies or other strategies that are focused on fighting for control of, the game board as you're trying to leverage that advantage into a victory. A lot of different branching ways it can go, but Death Rattle's kind of a fun one because, you can't just like play your thing and then they remove your thing and then you're sad and you got nothing. No, it does something. Haha, you played right into my hands.
It was a trap all along. Oh, yes. That is a good. Yeah, it's definitely in a lot of different card games. And as you mentioned, I mean, in Hearthstone, it's called Death Rattle. A lot of different games use a lot of different terminology, but it's definitely one of the, I would say, more prevalent kind of just, I guess I'll say like terms, but features, one of just kind of the keyword in a lot of different card games, whatever they call it. It's something, as something is summoned, as something dies, draw, like those are all kind of very prevalent parts of card games. So don't be surprised to see that in any type of card game. And I'm sure there's still going to be stuff in like Disney Lorcana too, and that's coming out.
Oh yeah. I'd expect they'd have some kind of the twist on Death Rattle. They certainly wouldn't call it Death Rattle, being Disney.
Yes.
Yes.
We did talk about that when we discussed it before, right? They are calling it banished, right? So when something is banished, right? Because yes, it's Disney. You don't want to have any of that kind of like violent potential, because it's very focused on like families and children. So don't want that.
Just imagine a like a hardcore version of Disney Lorcana where it's like when this card gets murdered, they just start using different terminology. I don't think it'd be as successful,
Maybe.
Just a guess.
Yeah, I mean, depends on the community and the audience that they geared it towards. Shows like The Boys, apparently very popular. People want that.
Oh yeah.
So
well, yeah, it's a totally different community. I have watched The Boys.
Yes.
It's actually a fun show to watch, but I also would not really recommend the boys to just anybody. I would need to
Correct.
know who I'm talking to before I say, hey, you should watch this. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what kind of things do you not like in shows, because it probably has a lot of things that people don't like. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, we are going to progress now into the news portion of our show today. So we'll kind of go through some of these bullet points here. For Hearthstone, we did have the huge patch that we talked about last week that was released. It had changes and new stuff happening for basically every mode, just about. And also is kind of including this new type of expansion that they announced in the patch, and there was a little bit more in-depth information about that as well. That expansion will be coming, well, it's kind of a direct to wild, right, kind of set, but that is coming on August 31st. So that is coming, what, next week? Yeah, next Thursday is the 31st as we're recording this. And then right after that, next Friday, September 1st, will be the next season of Twist. So it's kind of interesting how they kind of did this like kind of alternating or like layered type of release where they announced basically everything at once, but then they kind of staggered the release of all of the different content, even though it kind of was within the same patch, right? So pretty exciting, because that means we get stuff to talk about over multiple weeks and new stuff coming in the game. So that's always exciting. The Flesh and Blood expansion, Bright Lights, has been announced. I know we've been talking about this. It's going to be 251 cards. It kind of has like a futuristic, like cyberpunk, robotic kind of feel to it, kind of lore. That preview season will be starting September 22nd. The pre-release events for that will run from September 29th through October 2nd. And then the set will release on October 6th. So still a little ways out. We have Gamescom that has been going on, and Marvel Snap did announce and officially release the PC version of Marvel Snap. So that is like all launched, it's out, and they have been at Gamescom doing a bunch of, fun stuff. So that's pretty exciting. I know a lot of people are kind of excited to get their hands on and play on PC. And it's going to be a little bit more built, right, for like streaming and stuff. So hopefully no more all sorts of like chopped up, wonky screen captures and stuff for streamers, and it looking kind of odd for people watching. So
yeah, it's a bit weird playing Marvel Snap on the computer before. I tried it like a bunch of months ago, and it's nice that they finally have the client that works well with PC.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then, as we've already been mentioning throughout the show, Disney Lorcana, it did launch to some LGSs, some local game stores. It is coming to like big box retailers starting September 1st. So it should be more widely available for people starting September 1st. That's next Friday. But I did want to talk about a little bit, and at least mention, we can talk about it more in our main topic. Just that there are some kind of like product shortages. And since, again, even I mentioned my own personal experience, not everywhere has Disney Lorcana cards. Some places are very limited in what they have, so they have to be a little bit more restrictive when, selling to people, all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of been a really good and bad. There's a lot of like pros and cons to kind of how Disney and Ravensburger kind of approached this launch. So we'll talk about that more in our main topic. We have the next set for Eternal has been kind of already announced. It's on its way. It's called Battle Lines, and that will be launching in the fall, and it will contain over 200 cards and a few new mechanics. We also have SolForge Fusion is already working on their set 3 called The Last Winter. It is coming in the future. They again also have not announced an official like release date, but they are kind of showing cards slowly every week. They're kind of revealing more and more cards from the set, as well as working on their digital version of SolForge Fusion. And then we still have the DC Dual Force that is in the open beta, weekly patches with new content, bug fixes, user experience adjustments, card balance improvements, new features, like new solo content, a whole bunch of stuff there. So definitely check out the DC Dual Force. As of right now, they've kind of gone the opposite direction of some of these other games where DC Dual Force has only been on PC and eventually will also then move to mobile. So a little bit kind of like the opposite of like Marvel
The old
Snap.
Hearthstone route from back in
That's
2014 or something.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, that's a pretty good one. There's a lot of fun stuff over there with the DC Dual Force, and a lot of people that I have seen talking, whether it was like creators or just people who have kind of tried it. There's a lot of good stuff with the game, and it seems like it is honestly at or towards the top of the very like free to play friendly or like budget friendly. So if you are looking for a card game that you feel like you can get into without spending a ton of money or that you can try out without any kind of investment, highly recommend that one.
Always a huge plus when they're not,
Yes.
committing hard to attacking your wallet.
Absolutely. 100%. Yes. All right, Ron, what do we have for competitive and organized play?
All right. Well, as you may have heard, if you've watched this show before or even watched the introduction to this show, a big thing happened in Hearthstone last weekend. That's right. It was the Masters Tour. Happened August 19th through the 20th. We had our field of 16 players get whittled down to the top two at the very end being Gyu versus Pocket Train, and Gyu took down the victory in a thrilling final that went to 5 games. Wound up taking I believe it was $10,000 first prize, and more importantly, I think to all of the players was a guaranteed entry into the World Championship for Hearthstone, where only 8 players make it. Last Masters Tour champion Levick has his automatic bid. Now Gyu has his automatic bid to be in the World Championship. So we have 2 of the field of 8 that are locked in. And it was just a very interesting, entertaining Masters Tour. There were lots of, as Dawn was mentioning, lots of OTK decks, different, a flurry of math and different things to do for complicated setup turns and so on. And was definitely a very exciting, fun event. If you have a chance to go back and look at the broadcast, you can see our very own dragonrider on the broadcast as well. And just a very good, fun event. Moving on from Hearthstone, we have Battle Spirits Saga Grand Open events in November, with a grand total of 25,000 in cash prizes and Pro Tour events on the line. For Magic, there is MagicCon Las Vegas from September 22nd through the 24th. It is going to be hosting the Pinnacle Premier Level Play event of the season, the 22-23 season, and the Magic World Championship 29, as well as their new 100K Limited Open. For Flesh and Blood, finally, we have USA Nationals coming up now soon. Right now soon. August 25th through the 27th at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort, and there will also be a calling event happening. On top of that, there are going to be nationals in multiple countries happening this weekend, some being live streamed. And live stream nationals outside of the US include Australia, Brazil, Finland, Indonesia, Italy, New Zealand, Philippines, Poland, and Sweden. So a lot of things going on for Flesh and Blood as well. And that is what I've got for competitive and organized play.
Yeah, that is so cool. So many different nationals. I think all of the nationals are happening this weekend. I think like this is like just the nationals weekend across all of the countries. But it's pretty cool that there's that many that are also being streamed and that have streams, and you'll get to like catch the action. So that it definitely seems like they are doing a lot. I will be very curious to kind of see over the rest of this year and maybe next year also how Flesh and Blood like continues to do competitively, because I think Magic is probably one of the biggest, right? But Flesh and Blood definitely moving up there. So yeah,
Hey,
really cool
Flesh and Blood enthusiasts are eating good this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. All right, you ready to get into this week's roundtable topic, Ron?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I figured since we did kind of have we're going to do this maybe in a slightly backwards order. So full disclosure, we were hoping to have a guest today from the Masters Tour, but schedules just didn't quite work out. So hopefully next week we should have them. And, I don't want to jinx it, because then if something happens and then, we don't have them, may not be great, but hopefully next weekend. So instead of talking next week when the, I guess, official like big launch of Lorcana is, we're going to kind of flip-flop that, talk about that this week a little bit more, and then next week hopefully have that guest and focus a little bit more on that Masters Tour, digging deeper into that. So yeah, interesting, staggering, we've kind of talked about that already, of release for Disney Lorcana. So anybody not familiar, Disney Lorcana is a trading card game, physical trading card game that, yes, is it is part of the Disney IP. So you're going to see a lot of Disney characters, but it has been produced, created by the team at Ravensburger, who, if you have seen that name, heard that name, you might have recognized that from things like the Disney Villainous games, board games and card games that are out on retail shelves everywhere, right? So it has definitely been very, very popular. I think probably even more popular, and has kind of exceeded expectations of what they expected people to kind of have the interest. Part of that, I want to say, is because of the IP. I mean, right? Of course, people are going to be like, "Oh, Disney! It's a Disney
Pretty
thing."
much, yeah. I mean, you're gonna get people who are just flocking to it because it's Disney. There's always going to be like a base of that.
Yeah, but I think because of the way that they kind of did this release, which they had I think it was 8 cards, if I remember correctly, an 8-card set that they called kind of like a first edition at D23. 8 cards specifically made. They had a D23 like set logo and everything. They sold them as a set. Those cards are selling for a lot of money. They only had a very limited amount of them. They were only selling them in person at the D23 convention. It was a big thing, right? Those cards, I mean, some of those cards like individually are going for multiple thousands of dollars. Like, yeah, not like Black Lotus Magic kind of levels by any means, for sure, but still a lot of money, right? Not the One Ring. We're not talking about those kind of things, but for a game, especially that's not even out, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. Now they have, as I mentioned, some local game stores have been able to get product as of last Friday, and not all of them, and in only some areas. And then even they're launching this game in some of like the Disney theme parks. but not all of them yet. Right. So it's still like, okay, even if you wanted to get this, as it's kind of out, quote unquote, like it's out, right? It's launched. But it's still not widely available. So it's like a soft launch. And as we mentioned, next Friday, the September 1st, is when it will start being available, like at big box retailers. It will be officially launched. It will be out. It will be more accessible. So we might see a dip in pricing for some of these as it becomes more widely available. It's not such an exclusive thing, but it's been both exciting and I understand the thinking of like, hey, we want to really help support local game stores and get local game stores in on this game and support the stores and the communities that want to support the game. But on the other side, there are people who have just tried buying all these cards and buying a bunch of product, and then basically they're scalpers, right? Like there are people who have bought a bunch of the stuff and then they're trying to resell it for way more than the MSRP or even for what, like, you know, local game stores and stuff are selling it at. I don't know how long they'll be able to get away with that once it comes out to like the big box retailers and is more widely available starting next week. It depends on how much product there is. I know there's already been statements from Ravensburger about like there's a ton of product, like everybody will be able to get cards. Like they're very adamant, like, you know, everybody that wants cards will be able to get cards. So they're, you know, obviously they're doing a lot in terms of making sure that players have cards to play. But I think just maybe they didn't expect how popular, like how popular it would be. And also potentially maybe they didn't suspect that there would be kind of this like scalper type situation of people trying to get this product and then like reselling it for way more than what it's worth.
I mean, it seems like a pretty severe lack of patience to buy from a scalper when you can wait like a week. Like, I mean, who is so desperate to buy and play Lorcana right now that they're going to spend like, you know, 3 to 10 times the cost of Lorcana over, hey, it's coming out in a big box store in a week. So if it's not accessible to you now, you can just get it then. And like the company that says they're making it says there will be enough. Like, come on.
So
You really you can't wait one more week? We've been waiting a long time for Lorcana to come out. You can't wait one more week? I don't get it personally.
I think the issue is that we are a little bit more in the know, right? We this is what we do, right? We look into this stuff. We know what's going on. As I mentioned kind of at the top of the show, some of even like the local game stores, they've never even heard of this. True. We've been talking about it for a full year. It was announced at a convention in like July or August of 2022. And it's been, you know, promoted and at like every single game convention since, right? It is definitely gained popularity. And there are a lot of people who know about the game. But even still, there are plenty of people who don't know. I'll say even the card shop owner that I got the cards from, he didn't even seem to like realize how big of a deal it was that he got cards. And he was telling me, here's a little like backstory. I was like, yeah, this is you know, it's hard to find cards right now. And he was like, yeah, I put in the request for, you know, for cards and for product like months and months ago. And he's like, then I didn't hear anything. He's like, oh, I guess I'm probably not getting any. Then he says, I finally then heard from my supplier who was like, congratulations on getting the cards. And he just kind of went, okay, like, cool, whatever. Thanks. Like, you know, where, you know, he's used to things like the Pokemon cards and Magic cards that it's like, not a big deal, right? Whatever. Like, okay, pretty much everybody can get what they want. And he says the retail or the supplier said, no, you don't understand. Congratulations on getting some cards.
Yeah.
He said that supplier had 80 stores just in like in their area or whatever that they supply. 80 local game stores apply. and only 20 of them, only a fourth of them could get cards.
Wow.
Yeah, like that's huge. So yeah, hopefully this does kind of fill in some more. Hopefully once, this comes out, but I think there's still a lot of people out there that, they're like, whatever, it's card game, it's cards. What's the big deal? Like I don't think they realize the difference of what's happening right now and the difference in the kind of release schedule opposed to other card games, and especially card games that have been out for a while, right? Like Pokemon and Magic, like they could just get those cards, whatever, no big deal, whenever they want. But this is something completely new. It's a huge, huge IP. It's coming out in these kind of waves, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. So I suspect that there are people who probably don't know that it will be in retailers and more accessible and available everywhere very soon. And there probably is people who are like, oh my God, I need to get these cards. And they're probably looking into it going, these cards are so expensive. I'm paying $400 for a box of 24 packs from a scalper. Yeah.
I hope
Please,
that there's not too many people who are getting, I guess, kind of suckered in by that in this particular time frame, because you can do a little bit more research and probably find out that, hey, it is coming soon. Just a general piece of advice, it's probably not the best idea to trust the person who's selling you something, especially when they're not like an actual retailer or own their own store. It's just like some random person that you're communicating through just an independent website with, then they say, oh yeah, here's all the information needed to know about this, and that's why it costs this much. Maybe check some other sources first.
Yes. Please do some research. I have some stuff here that I wanted to kind of show. So there are, for this, they're calling it the first chapter. There's 3 different starter decks here. They're the same, right? Like each, whatever, if you get this starter deck, it's going to be the same as another box of this starter deck. These should only be like 16 to 20 bucks. If you're paying 40 or more for these, that is more than double like the MSRP. Please do not be getting them. I'm just trying to save people money. Like, right. Please beware. And one thing that I wanted to talk about as well, that again, shout out to some of the crew over at Citizens of Lorcana, these booster boxes. So it's 12 cards per pack, 24 packs in this booster box. I'm not going to sit here and exactly like show how it is or say it. People are going to figure it out on their own if they want to be, what's the word I'm looking for? If they want to deceive others, let's put it that way. The design of this box is not great. It's actually fairly easy to pull packs out of the box without actually opening it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, especially with the high prices and stuff, I am just going to say, be very, very wary of where you're getting these things from. It's going to be so easy if people are really wanting to do it that they could get one of these booster boxes. They could actually take the packs out without breaking the seals on the box, and they could potentially fill it and scam you. So just please be wary. I'm just so afraid for people who have not really looked into it. Just please do some research, look around, find like a baseline price. Some local game stores are probably going to charge a little bit more than the MSRP. That's kind of to be expected. If you really don't want to even pay the slightly above, yes, it's coming out soon. Try to look around Walmart's, Target's, Best Buy, like those places are going to likely have at least some product very soon. maybe there's people who, as soon as it like hits the Walmart shelf, 7 a.m. when they open or whatever, there's people gonna fill up their arms and buy all of it, and then they're not gonna have any. Maybe that's gonna happen, especially in like big cities. So just be cautious of that. But yeah, I definitely recommend just like please do a little bit of research, look into it, look at the websites, and see what it is that you're supposed to be getting for at least like a baseline price before you try to get anything.
Good advice.
But it's very exciting. I'm excited. Also got this Illumineer's Trove. So this box
Nice.
has, I know it's probably hard to see on the screen, but this has 8 booster packs. So 8 packs within it. It's got some little counters, and then it's got a couple of like deck boxes and like a storage box, with Disney characters and stuff on it. So that's pretty exciting, right? To be able to at least like open your cards and then have like a storage place to put them. A lot of these cards are, of course, with any card game, you're going to have the physical ones. You're going to have websites that are like listing them at individual prices, what people are selling like the individual cards and stuff for, right? Also, I'm really curious to see, I think some of them have gone up a little bit in price, just because then people are realizing, oh, these like are maybe more valuable. But some of them have dropped as more product has been released. So if you are looking to also buy like very specific cards, if you want to buy like a couple, maybe to fill out a collection if you've been getting it, maybe also try to wait just a little bit and see as, some of these, again, like the big retailers and stuff get the cards, as more people open cards, some of those prices might drop. So that's my next piece of advice.
Also good advice. Yeah. There's going to be, well, like there's a supply and demand issue right now that is going to change dramatically in a week from now. So evaluations now should be a lot different from evaluations in a week. Making any financial decisions based on right now information, when that information will likely change very soon, is usually not a great plan. So, just be mindful and protect yourself.
Yes. So it's just really interesting to see kind of the choice that they, went for with like wanting to support some local game stores and get it in the hands of like, communities sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some of the kind of the kind of downside, the backfire of that has been kind of this supply and demand issue. So definitely a big thing, but it's exciting to have the game actually out now. People can actually open the cards. You can start playing.
Have you started playing yet?
I haven't yet, just because this week has been just like so hectic in terms of, I had to go get the cards. And then it's kind of hard to play by myself. So there actually are, there's a tabletop simulator, and there is a like community, a fan made, app or product basically that you can play online. It's like a digital client that somebody made. It's not an official client. So if you see anything about Pixelborn, it is basically a digital client. You can play the game, but it's not an official thing. So it's totally fine. I don't know. Some people are kind of particular about that. So, but it's an option. So at least if you don't have cards, you want to play, you could try some of those. So that's exciting. But yeah, I'm excited to have some cards. I just, I want to see some events where I can actually like go and play. I think I'll definitely be playing some this weekend when I have actually some more some more downtime and my husband's not working all day. So then him and I can actually sit down and like play. But we've kind of been doing this thing where one of the booster boxes, it's kind of like I'm trying to think of what it might be called, like the 12 days of Christmas kind of thing that people do, or like where like you open like one every day kind of thing. Like we've been doing that. So like when he gets home from work at night, like each of us open a pack, and then we're like, oh, okay, what did you get in yours? Like, okay, what's in this one? because at least for now, we're probably really going to have like a pooled collection of cards.
Well, Merry Lorcanimus to you then.
Yay! Yes. But that's been fun, where it's like, even if I can't play at the moment, because I don't have anyone like readily available to play like in person, we've still been able to like open some cards, look at them, and then I'm going to be diving more into it over like this weekend and just as time goes on. So yeah, excited to play. But again, one of the issues with being in a smaller place is it does take a lot to kind of get people like locally more involved in these things. So it might not be easy for me to actually go to like local events. I might actually have to travel to be able to play tournaments or be able to do a draft potentially or anything like that. So I'm going to be keeping my eye out for events. One I know that I would love to try to go to later this year in December is, now I'm drawing a blank, PAX Unplugged. I think it's the first weekend of December. But the kind of cool thing, for me at least, for PAX Unplugged, is that there's definitely going to be potentially like some other Lorcana players, but there's also like SolForge Fusion. People are going to be there too. So I could potentially go and then be like, hey, let's play some SolForge Fusion and some Lorcana. So that's definitely one that I'm looking at. If I get to go to BlizzCon, I don't know if there's time, maybe in, like the hotel rooms or something. But if I'm really, really going to be trying my dangdest. I don't know if we've cussed on the show or not. I'm gonna be trying so hard to. I feel like now I shouldn't be cussing when we're talking about Disney Lorcana. I'm gonna be trying so hard to go to BlizzCon.
That Disney effect, it spreads,
I know. I'm like, I don't know. Like, should I say damn? Oh no, I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna be trying so hard to go to BlizzCon. So like, if anybody there, I'm hoping that if I get to go to these things, I'll of course take at least like the starter decks, right? Maybe I can be teaching people at conventions, right? And like, cross-pollinating the card game players. Like, let's go. All right, some Hearthstone people, let's play Lorcana. All right, SolForge Fusion crew, let's play Lorcana. Let's do it.
Love it.
Lorcana friends. Learn some Hearthstone or SolForge Fusion. Let's go. Like, I don't know. I'm just a card game nerd. I just want to play them all. But I think that's at least something that's really cool about like the starter decks. They'll have a little rule set in there. They'll have, some damage counters. So it would be easy to just, take this box or a couple of these boxes around with you where you're at. And if people want to learn the game or if they, want to play, you can be like, okay, here, it's got the little play mat. It's got the rules. It's got some damage counters. So you have the things you need, even if you're not carrying all that kind of stuff with you, kind of contained in a fairly small box here. So
that's good. It's a plus.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that I can still find some people to play with at some points, even if it's not all the time in my local scene. Hopefully the local scene grows some. But I think a lot of the local scenes for me currently are focused on Magic and Pokemon more so. I haven't even really seen a lot of like Flesh and Blood in my local scenes, or SolForge Fusion, those kind of stuff. So we'll see if Lorcana kind of picks up more closely to like Magic and Pokemon, especially I think with like the Pokemon and Disney kind of having, more of like the family kind of thing and being more accessible, I would say. They're not usually as complicated to kind of get into as some of the other card games can be. So I am hoping that it really starts to build up, and especially as the card game is out more, right? Want the community to see the cards and get cards and it be accessible. And maybe if it's at like Targets and Walmarts and stuff like that, then people will be like, oh, cool. Like, what is this? And then they'll have some.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to like just see what kind of momentum they build throughout September and
Yeah.
beyond, because September especially is like probably the biggest month for Lorcana to see like what kind of interest it gathers from the big box stores.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it'll be kind of interesting too, since it's, September, October, November, not very many months away from kind of the biggest holiday shopping events of the year, right? So,
This is
you
true.
know, that gives a little bit of time as well for kind of all of these stores to get all this product. I'm sure there will be something that gets sent out, even if it's just a lot more of this same product, but maybe there's going to be some sort of like holiday bundles or something that can also get more traction and get more people into the game. But yeah, I'm just very excited overall. I'm so glad that I found somewhere, even though I had to kind of take a road trip for a half a day to go get the cards. He was selling them at very, very reasonable prices. Like the
That's
starter
good.
decks were $16 each that he was selling them at. So like very good pricing there. So I really lucked out for that. So I feel very fortunate at least. But I am very excited to kind of see how this grows, Ron, and see how popular it gets. Are you going to be trying to get any Lorcana cards after it kind of launches more accessibly for everybody?
Perhaps eventually, not anytime in the immediate future for me. But I play a lot less when it comes to like physical card games. Now, if Lorcana had a digital game, like an official digital game, I would probably be trying it and getting into it a little bit. Um, Maybe I'll venture into, the unofficial digital version and just check it out and see how it goes. And that might even get me to like invest in the physical version of the game and see that. But I don't really have a whole lot of people like in my area that I would regularly meet with to play in person. So it's the same kind of issue of travel and other things. I think we've had this conversation before when it comes to like accessibility of games and physical versus digital and all that. That is just like it can get difficult. Obviously that's a market they're going for. They want to go after, families and focus on a physical card game and make it exclusively that, at least for now. um, I think it does, crowd out some potential members of the audience, but as things develop, things could change too.
Yeah, no, I agree. Again, it's one of those things that it's something like so new, and I feel like at least in like even the physical space, I don't think I've really seen this kind of like staggered release and just a kind of different approach that they've taken. And you know it
Yeah, it is
it
very interesting.
yeah. And I think it's been honestly a long time since we've had specifically a card game, but something like this that is this popular in terms of like the IP and kind of the fan base, or the kind of behind it. Like, even I think it even took a little bit for like Pokemon to gain traction, but Pokemon probably was one of the last card games that had that huge popularity, which
True.
is weird saying because the Pokemon card game like originally came out what 20 years ago, 20 something
Something
years
like
ago,
that,
like
maybe.
25 years
Yeah.
ago. So yeah, it's been a long time. So yeah, it's definitely something that like we want to kind of monitor. We want to keep our eyes on and see how it goes. But we definitely would love to hear from any of our audience if they are planning on playing Disney Lorcana. Are you going to get cards? Are you going to try even like the fan made digital version with Pixelborn? Let us know. We would absolutely love to hear how many of you are interested in it or are going to be trying it. Anything like that. So yeah, I think that leads us into our closing. Unless you have anything else, Ron.
No, that's it for now. Just
Right.
hoping. Well, I guess I just want to say I hope other people copy your Merry Lorcanimus idea, or like 12 days of Lorcanimus. Where you like open 1 pack per day for a little bit. I think that's a really cool, fun idea. I hope more people do it. But yeah, that's all I have to add for now.
Yeah. It's been fun because it's also like even on the most like mundane of days, right? Like it gives you something to look forward to.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah,
oh, at the end
exactly.
of the
That's
day,
cool.
like we get to open a pack
Yeah,
and like,
I love that
there
idea.
yeah, there's always that hope, like, oh, did we get one of like the really rare cards? And then you're like,
Then you
oh,
have to
not in
stop
this
yourself
pack.
so you don't open the next pack. That's
Yeah,
the hardest
that
part, right?
it,
Because like
it
you open
is.
one
It
and
is.
like, okay, now you're done. Now there aren't any more cards. There are more cards. They're right
Yes,
there. You could open more, but it spoils it for the next day. Yeah.
exactly. Yes. Well, if you are going to try this Lorcana, what are we calling it, Ron? Lorcanimus?
Yeah, I
I don't
just I
know.
just threw that in there. I don't know.
I don't know. We'll come up with a name. Name in the works. All right. Maybe if you have an idea for what we should call this, let us know. But there's a
Solid.
lot of places that you can reach out to us. So reach out to us. You can email us at tccgroundtable@protonmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at the TCCG Roundtable. Not the, but at TCCG Roundtable on Twitter. We also have our top pinned tweet there that can take you to our Discord, or you can find our invite link for the Discord in the show notes or in the YouTube description. And speaking of YouTube, yeah, we do live stream this every week on YouTube. You can find that at youtube.com dragonrider TCCG. But of course, you could also check out the show in audio versions wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to get some cool swag, maybe you need some sleeves to put all these Disney Lorcana cards in, or a playmat, or boxes, anything that you could think of. You want some storage boxes for all your Lorcana cards. We do have a link for our affiliates with Inked Gaming. So definitely, if you could use that link, get some sweet stuff over at Inked Gaming, and you help directly support us as well. We really appreciate that. So thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in, for listening, for checking out the YouTube version, all of that. We really appreciate it. Let us know at any of those places if you are going to be checking out Disney Lorcana and what we should call this like daily Lorcana packs thing. Let us know. Let us know. Where can people find you individually, Ron, if they want to check out what you are up to?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Ron_HS. You can find me on YouTube at RonMexico HS. And you can find me streaming on Twitch Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern at RonMexico HS. And where can they find you individually, Don?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, DawnieDK, DAWNIEDK. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube, dragonrider TCCG, and talking all things standard Hearthstone over at the Dr. 3HS podcast every single week. Would love to have you be part of the audience over there as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in this week, and we'll see you at the roundtable.